Hello and welcome. I'm Dianne Wagner. Today, with today's economy, people are experiencing change like they've never seen. They're losing their jobs, some are losing homes and their retirement. So what can we do to balance this stress? Today we bring you hope and inspiration and a simple tool that can show you the positive side of life and also motivate you to reinvent yourself. Our show today is Train Your Brain for Success, and our guest is Bill Weber. He is a United States Professional Tennis Association teaching pro and author of Amp It Up, Train Your Brain for Success. Welcome, Bill. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So now you have experienced some challenging changes yourself, so you're very clear on what people are experiencing right now, and you've experienced this throughout your life. So can you share with us some of the major shifts that you've experienced?
The major shifts I've experienced are I've been reinventing myself several times. Starting in 1992, I worked for a high-tech telecommunications company and was downsized and laid off and had 3 kids and a wife to support with a mortgage. So I was willing to do whatever it took to support them. I had an opportunity at that time from a family member to start a wholesale meat business. So I went from high-tech to no-tech overnight.
Wow, what a shift.
That was a huge shift for me.
And how did you fall into the meat business?
It was just one of those dumb luck things. You know, we printed up the tacky old business cards on a Wednesday, drove to San Francisco on a Thursday, had my first sale, and made my first delivery on a Friday.
Wow. Good. And then you continued on with that business?
Continued on with that, realizing that that business at the time I started was a very strong customer service business. And I'm a customer service driven person. So I've done that for 15 years.
Wow. And you've been successful with it, obviously. You've been doing it for 15 years?
For 15 years. And after 15 years, things have changed. We are no longer a service business, we're a commodity business. And unfortunately, the little dogs get eaten by the big dogs. And I'm a little dog, so I'm now reinventing myself and shifting again.
And what's that next shift?
The next shift is becoming a teaching tennis pro. And that was done primarily just because of my family. My daughters, at 14 years old, decided that they wanted to play on the high school tennis team and told me 1 week before school started. And you know, I have this ability to teach, and never knew I should teach them because I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
So I did what every dad does, and I went out to Big Five and bought 100 balls and a couple of rackets and said, let's go out to the courts. And after a week of training, my oldest daughter made the team, number 19 on the spot.
Oh, good.
So that brought me back into the game of tennis.
Because you used to play tennis years ago.
Years ago, I played a lot of tennis.
Great, great, great. And then you became a teaching pro.
Then I became a teaching pro. After coming back into the sport, I actually started playing again. I'm the oldest rookie teaching pro around, just about.
Well, good for you. You're an inspiration to all of us. You can change at any age, right?
You can, absolutely.
Yeah, and now you're doing another shift with going into being an author and writing this book and speaking. Good for you. So now when I was reading your bio, I do see a consistency throughout. What would you say your core values are?
Core values for me are family, that's very important to me, and helping others. Those are the 2 things that I do best and I do most. Probably to my detriment sometimes when somebody needs help.
But those core values got you through all those shifts and adjustments in life, correct?
Sure.
So would you say your wife and children have been your mentors and motivators in life?
Oh, absolutely. We push each other. My wife has a mentor. She sets an exceedingly high standard. And that standard has caused me to grow and become a better person because of what she has taught me to do.
I guess you would call that a good spouse, huh?
She's a very good spouse. I'm a lucky guy.
Good, good. I'm sure she's a lucky gal, too. So now you did acknowledge in your book someone that's a dear friend of mine in our families, and that's Spirito Ballatore. How did Spear inspire you?
Spirito has a wonderful passion about the way he lives his life. Spear and I have a musical connection. He played saxophone on the ships going back and forth in World War II. And he and I both liked big band music, and that was our very first connection.
And the Korean War, too.
That's correct.
Yes,
So we loved the music together, and just talking about his life work, his passion as a winemaker was just so exciting for me to listen to, that we just bring up the subject and you just see him turn on like a 1,000-watt light bulb.
Right, right. Yeah, and anything that Spirit does, he always exuberates this wonderful energy of life, living it and loving it. So I guess we're both blessed to have experienced Spirit in our life. So thank you, Spirito, for that gift you've given both myself and Bill. Now, from your life experiences, what would you say are these key elements that you've found that can help people be successful in any field?
The key elements are having a positive attitude, a very strong work ethic, and learning how to prepare. Those are probably the three most important things. Passion is very important as well. So if you have a very good attitude and you're passionate about what you do, you'll work hard to do it.
Right. Well, passion is that, and like if you're really passionate about something, it doesn't have to be work or fun. You just go out there and do it. And I think that's one of the key things in life, to find out what you're passionate about and go out there and do it and live life and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, so now this is your book, Amp It Up and Train Your Brain for Success. What inspired you to write the book?
It was just a dumb luck chance meeting. I was at a USPTA Tennis Pros convention, and I was having breakfast by myself and this elderly woman came up and asked to join me. And so I said, sure. We had a little breakfast, and her son, who's my age, sat down next to us and noticed my tennis clothes and asked me what I did. And I said, well, I'm a tennis teacher. His first question, which intrigued me, was, how do you motivate your athletes to perform at their highest level the instant they step on the tennis court? And I've never been asked that before, nor have I been asked since. Usually it's, how do you hit a backhand, how do you hit a forehand, give them a tip and off you go. So that caused my brain to really start thinking.
Because it's a different question. You're asking a different thing. Instead of what's the technique behind something, it's how do you motivate. So that one question really propelled you to actually go out and help and better your athletes through writing this book?
Yes, that was the question.
That was the question. So what did you do with that question at first?
It just rolled around in my head while I was at the training. We had a brief discussion before he left because I was curious. I asked a question back to him. I said, well, how do you motivate your kids? Well, it turns out this guy was a Navy F-18 fighter pilot trainer, teaching pilots how to do landings at sea.
Wow.
And that's what I said.
Wow.
And I grew up in the Apollo days, and I was very interested in watching how the technical things of the splashdowns and all of that.
Right.
And so my question to him was, well, how do you land a jet, and what mental traits do you have to have? And so he told me. I said, that's really interesting. Let me have your business card, and I'm going to take you out to lunch. So I put his card away, and for the rest of the weekend, all I could think about was the traits that his pilots had to have to land the jet. And about halfway through Saturday afternoon, the light bulb went off in my head saying landing a jet and playing tennis mentally are the same.
Really? How so?
Landing a jet and playing tennis, you have to visualize your outcome. So you have to know all the positive and negative things that could happen based on incoming data. You have to be highly focused, highly motivated, and be able to self-correct in less than a second. Otherwise, you have a bad outcome. Pilot's bad outcome is worse than mine. I just lose the point.
That's for sure, huh? So would you say that this is what you found is common about life in, workplace and in relationships and just life in general?
Sure. Sure. You have to be able to visualize every end result that you want.
Good. Now, you dedicate the book to our youth who are looking for their path and to those who strive continuously to improve, make every effort to realize their full God-given potential, seek balance in their lives, and follow their passions. So do you find that we all are continually looking for our path in some way?
I think so. I think most people are always looking for something. You see people always picking up the latest, greatest gadget or the latest fad, whatever. They're always looking for something, and people always find something that motivates them, and then they become passionate about it and move towards it. You know, as humans, just a human being, the nature of humans is we always seek pleasure.
Right.
And so whatever's pleasurable to you is a way that you're going to find your passion.
Right. Yeah, so I guess people just need to find what makes them happy.
That's correct.
Simple thing to do.
Simple thing.
Yeah. So what would you say makes your book different from other positive help books out there on the market?
Very briefly, my book is probably the shortest self-help book on the market.
Oh, I gotta say, this is what I love about this book. It is so short, and I like that because I'm one that it's hard for me to find books to read all the time. And you did say that it should only take a person, a fifth grader, 1 hour to read the book. So that was my challenge. I needed to make sure I could read this book in an hour because I'm kind of a slow reader. So it took me, well, about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But I made it there. But I love the shortness. Was that an intent? Did you do this intentionally?
I did it on purpose. When I talked to my publisher the first time, they said, "Can you add 70 pages? You know, make it a 120-page book." And I said, "No, I'm going to stand firm on this, that I want my fifth grade tennis student at the time to be able to read it." And knowing that that's the average reading level of the United States, all of a sudden I realized we have a really broad market.
Right.
But anytime I had a $10 word, I tried to change it to 2 $5 words or 3 $3 words, just to make it easier for people to comprehend and understand.
Right, so you just wanted to make it easy for everybody, and I think that's wise. There's this TV show, aren't you, what is it, a game show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And I'm embarrassed to say some of the questions, it's like, gosh, I remember that in fifth grade, but I forgot that. Sometimes I feel like some of those fifth graders are smarter than me. But I think that's wise, because you're reaching out to the masses. And I think that's an important thing. And for me, you know, I like tabletop books that I could pick up and go back to easily, because you have exercises at the end of the back of each chapter, and I really like that. So the book, you can apply what he's saying to your own life, and I think that's really, really important. Now, tell us what AMP It Up means. Where did that come from? AMP It Up
is a memory acronym. You know, I'm a technical kind of guy. I like acronyms. It helps me remember things. So it was just a simple way to remember performance principles.
Okay. And how did you come up with AMP It Up?
AMP It Up started off as a 4-letter acronym. Originally started off as PMAS, standing for preparation, mental state, standards, and attitude.
Okay.
And that just didn't flow off the tongue.
Okay.
So looking back over my life and observing people for the last 35 or 40 years of my adult life, everybody seems to have common traits. So I just took the thesaurus and went through the thesaurus and looked for the common traits in the words that matched. And we might have had 50 or 60 or 70 words, and I just moved them around until I came up with different words. And all of a sudden, I saw AMP, which means, to amplify. So what we're trying to do is amplify our success, our traits.
So you look first for the words that motivated and meant something to create passion, or help people visualize and realize their passion first.
Yeah, and the acronym had to be easy to remember.
Well, AMP It Up is very easy to remember. So let's go over what AMP It Up means and stands for.
Okay, so we go right down the list. AMP, ITUP. A stands for attitude.
Okay.
M is mental state. P is for your preparation. IT is intensity and tenacity. UP is unyielding standards and passion.
Okay, so these are actually what you call your 7 steps to train your brain to success.
That's correct.
Okay, let's go down each one of these. Let's start first with attitude. What should we know about attitude?
Attitude is probably the single biggest factor that affects how we are perceived or perceive other people. And we can choose to live positively or negatively. We can also choose how we're going to react to any positive situation.
Yeah.
Or negative situation. An example would be on our drive up here today. If I had a car accident, I could be very upset.
Right.
But I could also look at the flip side of that, saying, well, I had a car accident, but I didn't die.
Right.
So that's the positive part.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I was doing this grateful thing actually during Lent, because I'm Catholic, and I wrote down every day what I was grateful for. and I had just put a new windshield in the car, and a bolt hit my windshield, and I was really frustrated because it's like, gosh darn it, now I got to replace that windshield. But then I had to take a step back, and at the end of the day, I said, I'm grateful my windshield did its job and protected me because I wasn't hurt. So I think it is how we look at things, and I like in the book you say it's 10% is of what happens, and 90% is your reaction.
That's correct. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too. So attitude is very, very important, especially when people are facing the challenges with this economy today. It's how we choose to look at it and move forward from the situation, because many things we can't control, but we can control how we choose to conduct ourselves and react and respond.
That's correct. If you respond positively, you get positive response back to you.
Right. I always love on the BART train, they have this sign, in case of an emergency, look, I like to add the word pause, listen, and then respond. And I think that's powerful too. So now your second one is mental state.
Mental state. It's a state of being of your mind. There's so many different ways to say that. Some people say you're in the zone. Other people say that you're having a breakout. There's just hundreds of different ways to say calm mind, focus, and prepared to perform. Mental state.
You have to be ready. I had to be in my mental state before I started the show today. I needed my moment of silence to get myself in the zone, and I understand that. And I think people need to, understand whatever they need to get into that zone to excel in life.
That's right. And everybody's triggers to get into their proper mental state are different.
It is different.
And there's several different ways to do it. Some of them are doing repetitive tasks. Others are listening to music that you're not used to listening to, just to change your brain patterns up. There's others are meditation. There's just many different ways, but it has to be your mental state.
Right. Prayer too is a mental
works.
state. Yeah. So it's whatever works for a person to find that peace. Well, going on a walk out in nature is a mental state.
One of our most famous physicists used to do that, Albert Einstein.
Go on walks?
He would go on walks and visualize himself surfing on light beams.
Oh, really?
Is what I've heard.
Wow, he was way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah. So the third one is preparation.
Again, it's another simple thing that people don't do enough of. One of the things that I try to tell all of my tennis students is lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. If you live your life in that fashion, continually preparing yourself for whatever task it is that you're going to do, whether it's learning how to hit a serve, or working on your homework for your test, or preparing a recipe for dinner, but whatever it is, you have to continually prepare for what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's important in all aspects of life and business, and your personal relationships, going on family vacations. And I think the perfect analogy on how important that is the training of that fighter pilot landing on one of those ships.
Absolutely. In fact, in our recent news, it was February or March, we had the miracle on the Hudson.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
And listening back to the tapes, of his voice cockpit recorders, and watching all of the interviews, and I did have an opportunity to talk to a pilot after that. I said, Sully did a very good thing when he landed that jet.
Right.
But looking at what he did is, for 30 years, he's been preparing to do this.
Right.
He's in the simulators, and he was a glider pilot. He had everything right, and so he just reacted to his training.
And so he was a professional and was prepared. Now, you did mention in the book, and I love this quote in here, build your weaknesses until they become your strength. And that was by, I know I'm not going to say his name right, Kootenai Rockne?
Knute Rockne.
Knute Rockne, okay. I love that quote. And many times when we see our weaknesses, many people are scared and stay away from their weaknesses. Sometimes we practice on what we're good at, but really we need to practice on what we're weak at. That's
right on the button. And I have that in tennis students all the time. What do you want to work on today? Well, I want to work on my serve. You already know how to serve. Let's work on something else. Oh, I don't really want to work on something else. Well, I'm your teacher, and you are going to work on something else because that is your weakness. Now, each time you improve that weakness, guess what? You have a new weakness. Now we have something else to work on. And maybe we'll get back to your serve. That might be the weakest thing. after 5 or 6 months.
Maybe we have to look at it as a challenge that, okay, I'm going to be a proficient and a pro at this one weakness, and to be able to look at, hey, I'm great at that, so I don't need to work on that, but I'm weak at that, so let's build that up. I think it's very, very important.
That's all part of the continuous improvement mentality.
Good. So then you have intensity.
Intensity is, it's one of those nebulous things, but what it really means is, it does not mean, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean to be outwardly aggressive towards other people, or mean, or you know, like you see on the cartoon characters with them, they're just towards people. And it doesn't mean that. Intensity means a calm, laser-like focus that's yours. And it's, everybody's intensity are different.
It is. It is. I always say each show that I do, or if I'm on a project and a deadline, is where I work best, and I focus like an arrow. Focus like an arrow to get it on, and I always work on hitting the bullseye. That's the goal.
That's intense.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah, but I see that. Then we have tenacity.
Tenacity is a cousin of intensity. They kind of go hand in hand. So that's why they fit just perfect next to each other in the acronym. Tenacity is just keeping your eye on the prize, just, you know, always looking at the long part of the goal, you know, like your arrow to the bullseye.
Right.
So if you're intense, you're usually tenacious. And if you're tenacious, you're usually intense, but they work hand in hand.
So it's kind of like following your plan like a pit bull, huh?
Absolutely.
Good. Then you have unyielding standards.
Unyielding standards. That was the tough one to fit in the acronym. When I first looked at it, it just means setting really high standards for yourself, whether interacting with others, whatever you do. You know, one standard could say, my car will always be clean. As soon as it rains, you go out and wash your car. That's a high standard. And we all know people who do that.
Right.
So to get the high standards into the acronym for the U, I used unyielding. And unyielding means unbending. It's even stronger than saying high standards. It's an unbending standard, something that you will never, ever waver from.
And have no limitations. I do like you have this other quote in there. If you have time to whine and complain about something, then you have time to fix it. I like that one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. If somebody whines, tell them of that. Now, passion is the last one.
Passion. I feel passion is like a wind. You know, it just fills the sails of our boats and just drives us in the direction that we need to go. And the more passionate you are about the task or whatever it is that you're working on, the faster you're going to achieve that task.
It's actually the fuel of success.
Absolutely.
It's that undying conviction that you have and burning desire to do something, huh?
That's right, and we all know people who are like that.
Yes, we do. And it's fun to be around them.
Sure.
I think it's fun to be around passionate people. Kind of boosts up your spirits, too. Now, at the end of the book, you talk about work ethic. How important is work ethic?
Work ethic is the unsung hero of success for people. Everybody says, well, that guy works really hard, but most people don't see all the hard work people put in behind the scenes.
Right.
I mean, just preparing for this interview here, you know, we've had 2 days of communications back and forth preparing.
Right.
Now, it's old hat to you, but it's new to me.
Right.
So I had to do a lot of work and preparation for this.
Right.
I do believe in our youth today, we don't understand what work ethic is. And if we can get kids to put maybe the video games down and work harder towards tasks,
right,
I think things will be better.
Don't you think sports is a good way to get into work ethic?
Sports is a very good way. It teaches discipline, it teaches repetition,
right,
responsibility,
and teamwork,
team building,
working with others,
managing stress, managing failure.
Exactly. And those are all important things to know, that you don't always win, or you don't always make your score or get that point. You know, I was a professional ballerina, and I trained for 26 years professionally, and I always said people don't see the amount of work that we as dancers need to do before we can put a ballet on stage. And I'm sure that's the same with tennis. We just see the pros out there winning Wimbledon and all these wonderful events, or the Olympics where we see all these athletes winning, but we don't see all the time the work and the dedication and the work ethic that went into it.
Correct, absolutely.
So now you began your journey first by trying to help the youth, but now it's broadening into corporate America. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the things that the feedback I'm getting back is people would like to bring this into their corporations for training. So I'm currently working on a supplemental manual to add to the book as a training mechanism. It's more of similar to a textbook.
Okay.
And I want to do it in two different pieces because I still want the book to remain its brevity, its shortness.
Okay, and I think shortness is good. In this fast-paced world, I think we like it short. I like it, personally for myself. I like something that's short, quick, easy to read. Okay, now if you'd like to learn more about Bill Weber and his books and what he has going on, you could log on to his website at billweberbooks.com and you can train your brain for success. Now, Bill, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us and your book with us. And I just feel that you've given us a nice tool that's easy to use to help motivate people out there. I'd like to end with, what's that positive thought or affirmation that you have that has inspired you to do what you've done with your life?
I like to keep things simple. Love your game and then play it.
Love your game and then play it.
Yes.
And you actually end the book with that, huh?
That's the last sentence of the book.
Yeah,
and
good.
Whether your game is sports or business or music or whatever it is, love your game and play it.
Good. Well, thanks so much, Bill. We hope that we've inspired you and kind of churned some interest into where you could find your passions in life and go out there and plan your work and work that plan and make your dreams into reality. My wish to everyone is simply just to stay in action and keep the faith. To learn more about our show, log on to our website at www.diannewagner.com. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.